Today, the first this year. This is ABC News. Changes could be coming to the iconic ice cream makers who have built a brand on their names and flavors like Chunky Monkey and Cherry Garcia.
One of the stipulations of Ben & Jerry's being sold to corporate giant Unilever in 2000 was that its founders would be able to continue speaking out about the social justice issues they were known for. Now, co-founder Jerry Greenfield has announced he's leaving the brand after 47 years because their independence is being stifled. On social media, Greenfield writes, standing up for the values of justice, equality, and our shared humanity has never been more important.
ABC's Sherry Preston. Travelers arriving at San Francisco's International Airport may soon be catching a ride to their next destination using driverless taxis. Waymo just got the green light to test its vehicles around the airport. Feelings, though, are still mixed on the autonomous vehicles. During the test phase, drivers will still be in the car and behind the wheel. I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
What are you doing every day to support your liver? If you enjoy sweets, fast food, alcohol, or take any medications, that's a vital question to ask. Hi, I'm Sherry Torkas, pharmacist and health author. For over 30 years, I've helped people make informed decisions about their health, especially concerning prevention and long-term wellness. Supporting your liver isn't just a wellness trend, it's a daily essential. That's why I recommend Active Liver by New Nordic. It's made with plant-based ingredients like milk thistle, turmeric, and globe artichoke, herbs clinically studied for their protective and restorative effects on the liver. Active Liver blends traditional herbal wisdom with modern scientific research. Not all supplements are created equal. I trust Active Liver because it's backed by science, meets strict quality standards, and delivers true daily liver support.
Protect your liver and give it the support that it deserves by making Active Liver from New Nordic part of your daily wellness routine. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or newnordicusa.com.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Gorman.
Well, it's Wednesday, folks. It's that time once again for the Common Sense Conservatives right here on, as you just heard, WSMN out of Nashua, New Hampshire. 1590 on your AM dial, 95.3 in the FM dial. And as Todd likes to say, you can find us on the interwebs all over the place on the Truckers Independent Broadcasting Network, on my channel, at Colonel Chris White on YouTube, and elsewhere, even on the Facebook. Well, gentlemen, we're going to get into a tribute song here in just a few moments that put together for Charlie Kirk. Going to talk about that event that's occurred since we last spoke, and we'll spend a lot of time in that in the first hour. But a lot of big news. President Trump is over here with me right now. No, we're not in Windsor Palace together, or Windsor Castle. He's at Windsor Castle for the evening, and I'm just a few miles from there, as we're both in the United Kingdom this evening. And the desperate, sad, pathetic losers who just love to hate people demonstrated in London today, a whopping 5,000 according to police estimates. I saw the crowd look more like about 500, trying to overestimate the size of this pathetic little crowd. Much smaller even than the yahoos who showed up to protest to unite the Kingdom event. It took place with Tommy Robinson over the weekend. Another thing we can talk about. But Todd, before we get to that song, I want to say, how are you tonight?
Oh, good, Colonel. Yeah, I saw that the president, is over there. I guess he's conferring with you. I'm not sure if they're going to knight you or something while he's over there. What's going to happen?
I get the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
There we go. There we go. Take that. Yeah. Take that for what it's worth.
I almost thought for a moment that he was going to give one to the king. I saw earlier, because it was on the news here live at Windsor Castle, that the king's speech, other than delving a little bit into environmentalism, was pretty darn good. Spoke to the long friendship between our two nations, and the irony of us breaking away 250 years ago next year from the British Empire. And if our forebears could see where we are today, it was brilliant. I was really impressed by the king. I'm not a fan of Charles III, but I thought he did a fine job. Whoever wrote speech for him was brilliant. He delivered it very well. And then President Trump had fantastic remarks, and either he used a super tiny script or he was really winging it and just held a piece of paper to impress people, because that was a long speech for one page. He never flipped the page once, whereas the king went through about 15 pages on his speech.
Right.
Yeah. So, John, how's it going up there in Nashua? How you doing this evening?
It's going good. Yeah, that's just like Donald Trump, man. I've watched him do it where the teleprompter just stops rolling and he's just over there winging it, goes off script, talks for a little while, then he comes back on, and there he is back on script again. It's kind of fun to watch.
I've watched him at a number of events from behind the scenes. As a teleprompter operator stops, he just starts talking for 10, 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden, when the person's on the staff will say, scroll to here, he'll start back right here. And basically, they'll cut out like 3 or 4 paragraphs that he was going to speak because he's already winged something. And then they'll start over. They'll start somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, guys, listening to the speech, it sounded like it was a written speech, and he only diverted from it a couple times. But what I'm saying is that he never changed the page. I mean, unless he had like an electronic device that was scrolling as he spoke, because I mean, that's a lot of words, and in order for all that to be on one piece of paper, the text must have been like an 8 font. He must have incredible eyesight. But nonetheless, so we got that.
Yeah.
So, folks, which day was it? Was it the 10th when he was assassinated? Did we talk about this already
last Wednesday? On just before our show, about 4 o'clock, I think, in the evening.
Right, very briefly, just before the show, like within 3 hours.
Yeah, so we did talk about this last week. Yeah. So, but we'll talk a little bit about tonight and some of the developments on that. But before we get into that, John, under my guise as DJ Silver Eagle, I came up with a tribute song to Charlie Kirk. If you could cue that up for the audience, I'm going to put my microphone on mute so I don't wheeze over it.
I will be glad to do that. But first, I must say, I find it ironic that Chris Wyatt goes to England, Trump goes to England, and there it is, Jeffrey Epstein and Trump on the wall of the castle. And I'm thinking to myself, that would only happen to Chris.
Well, I'm not sure that happened to me, but
well, because your stance on Jeffrey Epstein and stuff, just happened.
Oh, the irony. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, they just released all the files. They'll never satisfy these people. Release all the files. They just released them. I mean, you can't release grand jury testimony. There's no probable value to that. So I don't get what these people want. Anyway, have you got it ready?
Sure thing.
Charlie stands on.
Voice like thunder broke the sky. He spoke for truth. He dared to try.
With courage burning bright as flame, Charlie Kirk was more than just a name.
They thought they'd silence what he gave, but free speech doesn't find a grave. Charlie stands on in the hearts of the brave, in the fight for freedom, the road he paved. Though the cowards struck, his light won't fade.
Charlie stands on, folks. I hope you found that enjoyable. A tribute song to Charlie Kirk. I was a little broken up there, but I'm broken up for our nation. Obviously concerned about Charlie Kirk and his family, but the horrors that befall people who call for discourse and peaceful conversation. I was too small to, although I was alive, too small to recall the events that led to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Bobby Kennedy, both men who believed in peaceful discourse and both men who ultimately gave their lives standing for what's right, moral, and just. And Charlie Kirk, despite the demonization of him by the left, the lies about him, calling him extreme right wing, he was anything but extreme. Anyone who stands up for the right to life, I saw today that a Sudanese group, a network of people, were given an award by a Norwegian organization for their defense of the right to life. Well, Charlie believed in the right to life, the unborn. They have a life. They're God's creations. And for that, he's been demonized as far right. Believing in protecting another life is not far right. It's a traditional liberal value. And the disgusting stuff that's been said by leftists, many of them paying a price for their bad form and their arrogance this past week, is well deserved. It's about time they were put on the back foot for being disgusting, vile, repulsive human beings that they've been for so long. Guys, before we go any further on this, I just want to say, John, I don't know if you saw this, but the lunatic from Hawaii, which idiots continue to vote in office in the Senate, Mazie Hirono, was revealed as a fraud once again. Mazie Hirono, a few months back, attacked the Republicans, saying that they were not really defending women with Title IX. And we'll get to our guest here shortly, but not defending that they're just, it's all about power and corruption. It wasn't about power and corruption for the Republicans. It's about Title IX and protecting girls and keeping transgender athletes out of girls' bathrooms, protecting them. But then today she was grilling Kash Patel of the FBI, and she thought she was clever. And she said, "Well, here, let me ask. So you've changed the physical standards at the academy. You have to do pull-ups. You do realize that men and women aren't the same. That women are weaker physically." Oh, what? Excuse me? I thought they were the same.
Oh, so now we're speaking the truth here all of a sudden, there, Maisie.
That's right. Maisie Daisy Clueless Hirono.
She's an idiot.
Lunatic,
She's a buffoon.
leftist propagandist, and she's been exposed for it. She belongs in the same boat with Hank Johnson. Maybe if Guam will capsize if we put so many Marines.
And I like that general kind of told him, like, he kind of looked around the room and he goes, "Congressman, I don't think that's something we have to worry about." And he just kind of like, "What the heck are you talking about?"
The admiral from PACOM at the time.
The admiral, he's like, "What is going on with this guy?"
And we do have a guest tonight, folks. So I just want to make sure we got that song out there. And I just wanted to, I had to mention Mazie Hirono because I'm only here for the first hour tonight.
By all means,
I just had to get that in. So Todd, who's going to introduce our guest tonight? Is it going to be you or John?
Yeah, I'll introduce him. So it's Reed Bull. He is a student at East Tennessee State University, or ETSU, in Johnson City, where he is pursuing a degree in economics with a minor in legal studies as a part of a pre-law track. As a member of the prestigious Roan Scholar Leadership Program, Reed has embraced opportunities to combine academics, leadership, and service to make a tangible impact in his community and beyond. Working on many projects. I won't go to the entire bio. That was more for the rest of you guys. But Reed, welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives. I know you're excited to be here. You might be a little nervous. I'm not sure. Is it your first time on a radio program by chance, and or streaming show?
The last time I was on the radio, I was at Seymour High School doing sports broadcasting there. So it's been a little while. Hopefully we'll shake the rust off in the first couple seconds here, but it is a true honor to be with you gentlemen here tonight.
There we go. As always, I'm going to turn over to the Colonel.
Yeah, sorry about that, Todd. Welcome this evening, Reed. It's a pleasure having you. Listen, I'm not convinced you're from the volunteer state. I detect one of those Minnesota accents, for sure. You sound like you're from Minnesota.
You can't tell by the accent that I was born and raised here in Tennessee, could you?
Absolutely. Just have a little fun with that. Break the ice a little bit there. So Reed, I presume you're a young conservative here, and that's why we're talking to you. The events of last week, did it shock you? I mean, are you involved with, say, Turning Point USA in any way, or any groups that are conservative groups where you're at?
Yeah. So more directly to that question, I don't even know. I don't even really have the words for it, for the sentiment and the hope that I have for Charlie Kirk's family. My heart goes out to his widow and, his kids. I mean, it breaks my heart. The rumor and stories we're still trying to get some clarification on. whether or not his kids were present. I mean, I just couldn't imagine that horror. And, I just really want to extend my heartfelt wishes for the best for his family. More directly here on campus, being a Roan scholar, I'm working on an ETSU Elevates project right now. And I want to invite the question to that project more directly because we're seeing a lot of progress here in the Tri-Cities area, really for veterans. And I'm partnering with Heidi's House of Hope. It's a nonprofit here in Johnson City. They have a new development. Commander, I'm sure you know a lot about this. We've stayed in contact, trying to move things along. Huge shout out to Miss Lauren Schreiber. She is the founder of Heidi's House of Hope.
Right.
And, I'm really enjoying the project and just trying to move things along in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great deal. He's calling me Commander because it's the American Legion title, by the way, Colonel.
Yeah, no, I picked up on that right away.
Yeah.
Well, Commander, I'd have to be in the Navy, and I was never making that big a mistake.
No,
in life.
no, forget that.
No, but seriously. So Reed, you're working with veterans, if I understand that correctly, then.
Yes, sir. So I would say where I started working with veterans was really, during the times of Boys State and Boys Nation in high school. I've got to shout out Post 104 in Sevierville, Tennessee for getting me into the American Legion, and now a son of the American Legion going to Boys Nation, which was really a week that shaped a lifetime, or hopes to shape a lifetime for me, sir. And, working on veterans legislative advocacy, as I'm sure we'll touch on here in the next little bit. I started this project. Let's start with Project 316. This was last year, early November. I was working with a student organization here at ETSU, trying to figure out what an issue was in the world, or maybe just here locally to Tennessee, that we could legislate on. And that was really the objective of that piece of legislation. Well, it passed through the House and the Senate of this organization as a mock government. And, I could really see where this piece of legislation was needed, given the events that Sergeant Jacob Edward Bullen was put in a Tennessee State Veterans Home. We trying to legislate on that, I understand, can be a slippery slope of sort, considering it is a governor's program here in the state of Tennessee. However, making sure that we have the legislative advocacy to say, we see these veterans in these veterans homes. We recognize the struggles that their families might face, and we want to legislate on that. And I think I speak for myself most certainly, as the one that wrote that piece of legislation, but also now, hopefully in the role that I'm with the commander here, Todd McKinley, working as the department liaison and trying to build a piece of legislation that's not only going to be, I would like to say a catalyst, but also somewhat of a moving point for the veterans here in the state that are looking at Tennessee State Veterans Homes and more comfortability for them and their families.
So, Reed, did I understand you correctly? Did you say you authored that legislation?
Yes, sir. We're still in the drafting phase. That was, like I said, early November of this past year. Something more attentive, and I want to say as now I'm working with a department JAG officer on something a little bit more comparable to state standards, and also my experience being up in DC this past summer as a American Legion intern with the Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation Division, using that practical real world experience to legislate here at a state level will be crucial.
Well, that's the question because honestly, very few legislators in the House or the Senate actually write the legislation. They rely on K Street consultants to write legislation. So if you're writing legislation at your tender age, you're probably well ahead of your state and your federal legislators. So let's go back here about a couple things you mentioned. There's some terms that I think that, we have an international audience too, and across the U.S. Not everyone's familiar with some of these things. Of course, I'm familiar with them. I'm sure that Todd's very familiar with it, even John, because these were things that were in our youth that were available. But you talked about, for instance, Boys State. You talked about that. Can you tell people a little about that? And also, people outside Tennessee probably don't know what the Tri-City area is. You can tell them what those Tri-City, that region is, just so people are familiar with it.
Yes, sir. So let's start with the Tri-Cities area. I'm here at ETSU, which is in Johnson City, the Tri-Cities, Kingsport, Bristol, almost reaching in to Virginia. That piece of legislation, I think, to your question, starting on that piece of legislation was something that, I how do I want to put this? It is you see a need, you feel a need, Colonel. And, whenever I started on that piece of legislation, I had a phone call, if I could, with going into this Boys State topic. I had a phone call with then Department Adjutant James McLaughlin, who brought me into Boys State and said, James, what is something here at a state level that needs to be legislated on or could be legislated on that's not gaining enough attention? And whenever he told me what had transpired with Sergeant Jacob Edward Bolin, I just really had a hard time sitting back and letting that happen in my community and in my state, I should say. But to go to your point on Boys State, I would have never known Adjutant James McLaughlin without going to Boys State. I would have never known him. I would not have the pleasure of working with the commander here. I just really want to go back to this influence in my life that Boys State has been for me. And I'll speak more directly to what Boys State is, but just the impact that Boys State had on my life, that God allowed that to happen in my life for me to be here and to do the things that I'm doing has been beautiful, and it's been an honor and a blessing.
Absolutely.
When I was younger, I'm not sure how it is now. I mean, I don't have any kids in school, and I don't teach at the high school level. I've taught at university level. But when I was younger, we had things Boys State, Girl State, and that's where a select number of folks went and they learned more about the country and civics and things like that. We also had things like the Daughters of American Revolution gave an exam every year, and you could win an award. I don't know if that's still out there. And of course, it was mandatory to take civics in junior high school and American government in high school in your last year. What's that like for your path as a young man? Did you have civics in junior high school or in high school and American government? Are those still things that are required? Because every school district's different.
Yes, sir. In Sevier County, we do, and I'll go furthermore on that subject of organizations that are impacting our youth at the high school level. I had a friend of mine, and he is now in the Air Force Academy, and he's wanting to, he's going to be a pilot, and he said, "Rita, have you heard about the American Legion?" I said, "You know what, Bryce, I haven't, but tell me more about it." And so, starting this conversation within a high school level, it's not just important. Those conversations have to happen for our youth to understand the organizations that want to reach out, that want to bring godly values to our youth. And that just was so important for me to get into. Boys State, you're mentioning, the Daughters of the American Revolution. You're talking about Girl State, Boys State. I would have never known without that conversation. And I think that's just from a integral high school perspective. What conversations are happening now in our American high schools, I'm not sure. I know the conversations that we're having at our universities. I would like to say that other lives that were in my Boys State class, the other men that were in my Boys State class, their lives were affected just as much as mine. If you have, let's say Marsha Blackburn come out and speak, if you have Governor Bill Lee come out and speak, these political figures that you only see through a TV screen that go to connect to our children and youth, which is a pillar of the American Legion, is also important. But I would like to go this direction with the Boys State program, understanding civics, to your point, more aptly, government and civics, understanding the rights that we have as American citizens, how important the Bill of Rights truly is. I competed in the American Legion oratorical competition where we talk about or we speak about the American Constitution and the Bill of Rights and why that's so important to our youth and to our nation and the rights that we have. I think that's only enhanced here at the university level. As Commander told you earlier, I'm an economics major with a minor in legal studies. And, I have the great honor of being in class with some really good philosophers, as well as, the University Council telling us about how we have individual freedoms and rights here at the university, as well as in the state and in this country, and what that really means to our youth and the, I want to say our college students here at ETSU.
Economics, but also you mentioned some studying in legal studies. What's your desire to study that? Is it to understand economic law or business law, or is it just to give you a firm footing on society? I mean, why the focus on that? I'm curious, because I was a history major with German as a minor, but that's because I was interested in German, and I've been to Germany, not for any particular reason other than that. So I'm curious about the legal studies. Where do you see that playing a role in your future?
Yeah, so legal studies, I'm hoping to go to law school after 4 years here at ETSU. I'm not sure where quite yet, nor do I know what kind of law I want to practice. I'll say this, Colonel, I would not have said I'd be sitting in this seat, having this conversation, having the great honor of being on this podcast with you tonight. That was just not a thought on my mind, a couple of years ago. And now God's brought me to this point. And so I think it would be inadequate for me to try to make a path for myself whenever he might change that path. And, I do feel a strong pull to go to law school to pursue my JD, but I'm not sure what I want to do with that yet. I've rambled with the thought of becoming a JAG. I've thought about going into constitutional law like the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. I'm not really sure what that would look like in my future, but I do know that I have a great passion for law, debate, and of course, talking, as I'm sure you can understand from this conversation.
Yeah. But one more thing, he was the Beta Club national president, by the way. So he does have the gift of gab, by the way.
Well, it's that Minnesota accent. That's what it is.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But a lot of people have been very successful, have gone into constitutional law. Barack Hussein Obama was a constitutional law student. Ted Cruz, if I'm not mistaken, was also a constitutional law student. That's probably a better example that we can all relate to. We can relate to Ted Cruz a little
Only
bit better
Obama
than Barry
understood
Obama.
the law.
Yeah, if only he understood the law. It's fascinating how people can study constitutional law and not know the Constitution. But let me ask you this question, Reed. I want to come back at some point, and maybe Todd can introduce this, because you were talking about Sergeant Bowen and something that happened. I think it was Sergeant Bowen in Tennessee, and I don't think most of us are familiar with that story. So let's put a pin on that for a second. But I want to come back to that, not forget about it. But I did want to ask you, what's the mood like on campus? I mean, I haven't been on a campus in some time here. What I was teaching postgraduate was at the Army War College, not exactly a college campus, but it is a postgraduate school. What is the mood like in East Tennessee? I mean, it's a lot of schools, things are very far left, no matter where you find yourself on campus. Some places, like you go to Liberty University, it's very much a conservative place. You go to Hillsdale College, very conservative. What's it like in East Tennessee? What's the mood? Is it all over the place? People have all kinds of backgrounds, or is there a predominant prevailing sort of political view there?
Yeah, I think, Colonel, college is what you make it. That's what my dad told me. And I stand behind that. I believe it. I've had experiences with both sides of the political spectrum. As someone that is a God-fearing Christian, that, I do have political beliefs that are conservative. And so going to your question of whether or not there's a certain tone on campus, again, I'll point back to it is what you make it. I have really good friends on both sides of the political spectrum. And I think too, we as college students, I would like to say it depends on what room. And I don't mean that in any sort of way, but I think, whenever you surround yourself with people that like-minded or not, having, you talked about earlier, Colonel, the point where we have good civil discourse, where we can have those common sense debates. And whether or not it's common sense, or if it's something a little bit more, I don't want to say philosophical, maybe, I think having that civil discourse is very, very, very important. I cannot stress the importance of that enough. Being able to sit down and understand the other side of the aisle. I mean, I think it's pretty universal among my generation that Reagan was this great president. No matter that he was a Republican or not, he was a great president because I think as history has taught us, he was in the art of compromise, and that he was able to have those conversations. And, especially for someone that is, new to college, relatively young, and understanding the principles that he led by so that I may be able to do the same is very, very important. And again, going back to that, I think it just depends on, one, the group. I think it depends on the atmosphere, the political climate of the time. Things like, the events that transpired this past week definitely heat up those conversations. We just had a vigil here, actually, last night for Charlie. And, what saddens me, Colonel, is that I had to keep my head on a swivel at all times. And this is where, you can get into, campus carry or not, constitutional carry should go into campuses. That's a whole nother evolving debate. And I won't even get into that. But my point there is that I have to keep my head on a swivel because there is such evil in the world that I feel unsafe going to a vigil for a man that lost his life pursuing the freedom of speech. I mean, just let that. I know that has sunk in for many of us on this podcast.
The irony of just that, Yeah, that's why
silencing someone because they're excited, and not only that, someone who's seeking discourse. Look, Reed, I asked the question because, look, I went to university. I've continued to go to university. I just graduated from Michigan State in beekeeping, the agriculture department 2 years ago. But and I've done postgraduate degrees, so I continue to go. But I was at university. Let's say I'll just say this: Cheers was on television, and so was Magnum PI. So we won't pick dates there, but just give a time reference. But I was on university, and this animosity wasn't there. I mean, we used to have Baker Center at Ohio University, which now is a brand new building. They moved it closer on campus, but this was in town. It was right on the edge of campus, campus across the street, and it was right there, but it belonged to the university. It's called Baker Center, and that's where student groups would get together. And I was a member of the Young Republican Club, so I would go there for meetings. And I remember one night I was rushed to get up there. I went to the meeting, and I don't know if they put the numbers in the rooms wrong or in my hurry, I misread it, but I walked into a room, and everybody was very friendly. But something wasn't quite right. These weren't all Republicans. And then I sat down, and I quickly realized I was at the Gay Student and Lesbian Alliance meeting and not actually the Young Republicans Club. So they explained to me that actually the Republicans are in the other room. So I went next door to the other room. But people got along well. I mean, there's probably some Republicans in that gay meeting. But my point was that this sort of animosity wasn't something that was prevalent on campus at that time, at least at the school that I went to in the Midwest. It might have been different in California or in upstate New York, but certainly in Ohio, that wasn't the case. And I'm just curious because discourse was the order of the day. People had different views. They talked about it. Nobody was out to attack each other. There's none of that nonsense going on. The biggest animosity was when the opposing football team came to town on Saturday for a game. But that seems to be very different in society today. And we're led to believe from mainstream media that is the case as well on college campuses. I mean, we saw that Milo Yiannopoulos they tried to keep him from going to campus out at UC Berkeley a few years ago, and we saw what just happened to Charlie Kirk in Utah, of all places in Utah. That's shocking to me. It's a very mellow state. I mean, if that happened in Tennessee, I'd be just as shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if it was in New York or California, but Tennessee or Utah, I'm shocked. So that's why I was trying to gauge a sense for what's going on there. So thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate it. Let's go back to that point you were talking about earlier. You were talking about an NCO. Was it Sergeant Boykin or something? Can you tell us who that is and how something happened that motivated you to get involved here? Because I think that was the genesis of the spark for you working that legislation you talked about.
Absolutely. Commander, would you like to expand there a little bit more aptly, and then I can expand from my point of view and how I got involved?
No, you go ahead, because this is about you, my friend. Don't let me take up any of your time.
Well, I'll go off of the words that, I had to hear over a telephone call. I mean, I've really got to reel this one in. It was just really sad to hear from like I said, a phone call that I had with James, and that Sergeant Bolin was in a facility, a Tennessee State Veterans Home, and he wasn't receiving apt care for his circumstances. My understanding is that he had debilitating cancer at the point to where he was not a harm to himself or others. He had a 16-year-old son, and that he wasn't how do I want to put this? He wasn't given the best position where he felt like he was able to connect with his son here within the state, and so that bothered me. And the way that I put that, he had no other legal guardianship, and so his father was all that he had, and I really appreciate that about Sergeant Bullen, and what I knew about him is that he wasn't going to give up the time with his kid. He stayed where he was at because he had a 16-year-old son with no other legal guardianship that was coming to see him at a Tennessee State Veterans Home. Well, they gave him the option to move, from my understanding. And then that was, how do I want to say, not a possibility as events transpired. And so this accountability phase came in to where we're looking at Tennessee State Veterans Homes. And this was something I went into this summer as an intern in DC, is that this is a state issue. This is a governor's program, as I mentioned earlier. There are things that the governor can provide for, and that the Tennessee State Legislature can provide for funding of these facilities. After having some meetings in which, I'll leave be, I understood that there was a different type of care at these different facilities across the state. No two facilities, to my understanding, that there are not a surplus of facilities, I should say, that have the same amount of care. So they're in different schedules, if I should say it. Why does that have to be that way? Is it because of funding? Because the Tennessee State Veterans Home that Sergeant Bullen was in was recently renovated and built. Is it, might I say, a hiring issue? Is it faculty and staff? What is that issue? And so this legislation really was more for the attention of the matter to say, hey, this isn't right. We can't let our veterans go into a Tennessee State Veterans Home where they're promised, because of their service, that they're not going to be taken care of. Like we cannot do that. That cannot be allowed in our state. And so that legislation led to some really great meetings, and hopefully some legislative action in the future. From my understanding, this Tennessee State Veterans Home has now risen to 100% capacity, believe it or not. And I cannot be more overjoyed to hear that fact, that Tennessee State Veterans Home is being used to its fullest capacity, considering at the time of the unfortunate events that transpired with Sergeant Bullen, that it was only around 60%.
Right.
So, Reed, how did you come to your worldview? Is there something that influenced you in particular, an event, a mentor, a parent, a teacher, something like that? When I was young, I had all the bad examples to follow, and I did everything 180 degrees the opposite. And that's probably why it turned out all right. The only positive examples I had were actually in high school that resonated with me. A couple of teachers who, asked me if I was going to go to university, and I said, well, with what? I'm poor. And they told me to go to the guidance counselor and look into loans and grants and things like that. And they said, you should go to college. You're a smart kid. And I'm like, I didn't think I was a smart kid. I didn't have the best grades. I was busy milking cows every morning, every night. That was kind of my focus. But they were right. And that was just enough of a little push to get me going. But my worldview had already been formed. And it had been formed at a time when the man you talked about, Ronald Reagan, was president. And I was coming of age when President Reagan came into office. And that was really a big event in my life and really shaped a lot of what's going on. But I got there on my own. Is there someone in your life that really pushed you in that direction, or did you just find your way to being a conservative of your own accord?
So I would say from a conservative nature, being brought up in a house of God from my parents, having these traditional Judeo-Christian values put onto me as a Baptist. And I know that's Protestantism, but anyways, as a Baptist, to understand, one, my relationship with Jesus Christ is the most important thing in my life. Going back on events that have happened last this past week, one thing you can say about Charlie Kirk is that he believed in Christ, that he spoke the word of God, and understanding how important that is. No matter what room I walk into, no matter what side of the fence someone might be on, politically speaking, to be able to share with them the gospel is far and foremost the most important thing I can do in my life, first of all. Second, having parents that push me to realize my own true potential, even whenever I didn't see it in myself, is something that I will be ever grateful for. My mom and dad have pushed me to limits that I could have never imagined, or that I thought I could have attained. And hopefully, I know they're going to continue to do that. From a mentorship side of things, more specifically with veterans, my uncle, he from a very very young age, he was in the Army, he was in the Air Force intelligence, as well as did some work in the Secret Service and private protection. So understanding his military background, understanding, maybe more on the side of caution and, gun rights, that kind of thing. And always looking at, the new magazine on the coffee tables whenever we shared times at Christmas. I think understanding that his service, and my great grandfather, who was a World War II Marine island hopper, understanding this service and this sacrifice, and understanding, the orders that our men and women take every single day, or, that's larger than life, sir, to be real honest with you. And so there's been mentors in my life. It would take me a very long time to list them all, because it takes a village, and it really has for me. And I'm going to try not to break up while talking about it. I mean, everybody that has poured into me to get me where I'm at today, from a scholarship standpoint, from a legislative advocacy standpoint, there's just so many, sir. So, I pointed out the early revelations of understanding that I knew this was something that I was interested in, possibly something to legislate on, and the individuals that have really pushed me to be here today.
Fascinating to hear that. I do have one question about that, though. If I heard you correctly, you said your grandfather was an island hopping Marine. Was your grandfather or your great grandfather?
Great grandfather. My
I
microphone
was
might
going to
have
say,
cut out on that.
no, that's okay. I mean, because my grandfathers were in the Second World War. I'm like, how old were your father and your grandfather when they had kids?
Right.
70? That's what I'm trying to do the math out here real quick. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. We're a little bit of a generation apart there. Yeah, my grandfather's same one was in Merle's Marauders, and fought the Japanese in Southeast Asia. The other was landed in Normandy. So yeah, but my grandfather, not my great grandfather. So I was trying to figure that one out.
Yes, sir.
So what's next? What's next, Reed? I mean, it sounds like you have a very busy and fulfilling life at the moment, studying and volunteering and helping veterans and writing legislation. And is there something else on the horizon? Do you have plans in the short term, or are you looking long term? Where's your focus? Both places, maybe.
Oh, absolutely both. I mean, God is the air in my lungs right now, sir, as I know that He is for you gentlemen, and hopefully everyone listening. I would say the first thing that I can talk about really quickly, if you haven't given your life to Christ, do that tonight. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. If Charlie Kirk's death has taught us anything, it should be that we should come together stronger and better than ever in our Christian faith. On the forefront of my mind right now has to be that. And, all these other things, studying, studying's up there. I'm going to keep my grades up. But, studying and the nonprofit work that I'm doing right now with ETSU Elevates, I'm really excited about that program. And if I may, I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit further, Colonel.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you finish, I'm going to hand this off to Todd. He knows you, and he's probably got some really good questions queued up. So why don't you tell us about that, and then Todd will take us the rest way to the top of the hour.
All right.
Perfect. So Project Welcome Home Veteran is my project and our project for ETSU Elevates. And really what this project goes to do and the goals are to provide a community through micro home housing here in Johnson City. But as I'm sure you gentlemen know, you've looked at the statistics. 58% is a round number there, and it fluctuates by day, I'm sure. But according to Helio, veterans are at a 58% higher risk of suicide than civilians, especially with a positive PTSD scan. And that is something that I know this project centers itself around, because I think I would offer that the community that Heidi's House of Hope and Project Welcome Home Veteran are trying to provide to these veterans here in Johnson City will decrease that number, more specifically here in the state from the national average. Working with the American Legion in Washington, D.C. as a part of the Roan Scholars Summer of Service Project, going and seeing these things at a national level, the statistics through the Be the One program, 18 veterans were losing a day.
Right.
That's what's
Absolutely.
recorded.
So really quick about the tiny homes, or micro homes, as you called them. You do have an event coming up very soon, and I know we got a number of listeners in Tennessee right now, especially American Legion and veterans. What date is that, and where can they find more information about, helping out with that, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. It's October 6th. It'll be at the ETSU Martin Center. Doors open at 5 o'clock. All are welcome. I would love to share the link to you guys, and hopefully all of your listeners will be able to join on October 6th virtually if they cannot attend in person. So kind of how ETSU Elevates works is there's a grand prize at the end for first place. That's right around $3,000. And then there's a audience choice award for another $1,000. And so all the support that we can attain would be great, and would love to share that project on October 6th with whoever shows up, both in person and virtually.
Oh, absolutely. Now, if you could give some advice to, say, some young people who are maybe around your age, that's maybe out there floundering right now. They left high school. They really don't have any direction. They're not in the military. They may have a job, not sure, but maybe it's just menial work, what have you. What is some advice you could give to some young folks in your shoes, if you will, or your age, that maybe can motivate them to maybe get their head on straight and get in the right direction?
Yeah. So I think Charlie Kirk said it best, because college isn't for everybody.
True.
We are at a deficit for trades and skilled work, and I know in Tennessee, and I know in our nation, that would be the first thing, because I know that's been a heavy point in mind right now. But I think if you're in college, and Colonel, you touched on this earlier, the media wants to make everything divisive. It does not have to be that way. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. And sometimes it takes a different mindset to improve yourself and to improve others. Sometimes it's just a hello of a morning whenever you're dog tired and you see somebody that you don't recognize, and you can see that they have the same anguish on their face, maybe from a homework assignment or from a really long exam that they've been studying for. Maybe sometimes it's just the hello. And sometimes I know that it has been for me, that it's led to a conversation, in past tense, but in a future tense, for me to have a conversation about the Lord and what He's doing in my life and what He can do in theirs if they're not a believer.
Right.
I think, whatever work you do, enjoy it, find fulfillment in it. I recently read a book with the Roan Scholars program here. It's called The 6 Types of Working Genius. It's a fantastic read. Understanding your genius, because God has given us all gifts, and understanding that no two people are the same, either by fingerprints or by DNA or by soul, or connection to God, and understanding that the gifts that we have are specific to us, and we should be able to enjoy those gifts and use them for His light and His glory.
Right. And you've always been a positive person. Every time I've been around you or spoken to you on the phone, what have you, text message, email, you're always positive, upbeat, even whenever you're dog tired, as you said. So what Is it your view of Christ and your relationship with Christ, or and your family? What is it that makes you such a positive, upbeat person that wants to go forth and do good things and help people?
Yeah, Christ has put me in this position. My work's not done. He has given me another day on this earth, and until
Right.
he calls me home, I'm going to do everything that I can that he's led me to do here on this earth to benefit others as he has benefited me. And that's just something I live by is be the change that you wish to see in the world. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So
That's a
I
great,
think that
great.
that's the most important piece of advice that I can offer, sir.
Love it, absolutely. And we've got a few more minutes here spent. John, you want to jump in on a question or two, or Colonel, you have anything else? I see the Colonel's, he's over there bobbing his head up and down. He may have a couple more questions. I always love the
I've
Colonel's
always got more
questions.
questions. I've always got more questions, but let's if John's got something he wants to jump in
No,
here.
no, go ahead. You guys been rolling with it. And I'm really kind of at a loss for questions right now. So
All right, well,
Raymond.
then I'll jump right back in here.
Sure.
So Reed, the law. You've mentioned the law. Have you thought about where you might want to go to law school? Has that come to mind yet? Are you going to be one of those Harvard boys? Or going to be something there in Tennessee? Or
I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see how Harvard turns out in the next couple of years.
Right, there you go. That's a good.
I don't know.
Answer, Reed.
I'm gonna
Good
keep
answer,
myself
Reed.
open there because there could be great changes for
That's true.
Harvard, and I would hope to see in a positive, in a very positive way. I don't know. Like I said earlier, I'm going to see where God directs me, and I'm sure there will be an opportunity to present itself. Right now, I'm focusing on LSAT prep and trying to keep the wheels on the bus here at ETSU, and trying to sharpen my sword with the ETSU speech and debate team. As well as the Roan Scholars Program. If I can elaborate on that, the Roan has really made a significant impact on my life. It's a 4-year full ride scholarship here at ETSU, and we're, our founder, Louis Gump, really wanted to instill in high school seniors, college freshmen, the ideas and fundamentals of leadership and what that means for the youth, and hopefully to move leaders here at ETSU into the community. That is the objective of ETSU, is to benefit our region and beyond, and hopefully to be a good proponent of change here on our campus.
Absolutely.
One of my viewers who's joined the chat has been asking questions, and he says, how come that young man is better dressed than anyone else? Well, Todd's in the studio, John's in the studio, and I'm in a third world country, so that's our excuse.
Yeah. That's right. Great Britain, yeah.
That's right. Well, sometimes it does feel like a third world country, trust me, with the internet, having a hard time there. But anyway, so Reed, really appreciate you coming on tonight and your insights and what you're doing. And I've got to say that I'm really thrilled. At sometimes I lose a little bit of hope for younger generations in our country, because I feel like I grew up in a different era, a different epoch, where people respected the country and respected the flag. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were people burning the flag when I was younger, but we didn't have the kind of animosity that the people seem to have today. And maybe it was always there. We just didn't have social media. Let me ask you that question. I mean, has social media played a role in your life? I mean, for some people, it plays a very big role in their life, particularly younger folks. But there's a few of those, as they say in Afrikaans, old toppies, the old farts who actually use social media. But has social media played any role in where you find yourself today?
Yeah. If you'll look at my social media page right now, more specifically Instagram, there's nothing on there. Maybe except for the involvements, some previous and current involvements there in a bio. But, sometimes I wonder to myself, Colonel, what does AI look like in the coming years? And I know you all have had great conversations with Miss Gina Harjani. We knew we knew each other through the National Beta Club, and her ideas on AI, and that's just really going to affect, I think, social media presence. I think what's real and not real in the world, we're going to have a bad perception on that in the next, 10 years, 15 years, and that's really sad for me to say. But social media, what the role that it's played in my life, I think, this goes back to your earlier question, Colonel, of what advice, and I think you also said this, Commander, what advice would you give to the younger generation? Don't subjectify yourself by what looks like success on a phone screen. Like, don't do that.
Amen. There you
Everyone
go.
has their own success. God has different plans for everyone. So why compare yourself? Comparison is the greatest thief of joy.
That's
And
true.
I think going further on that, why would I be drugged down by something that, the enemy could be possibly using a proponent against, for his will? Like, why would I do that? But
Right.
for social media in my life, it's been both a blessing and a curse. I know my mom really likes the social media side of things. Me, not so much, but it seems like Facebook and Instagram have different amplitudes there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you can tell your mom's very proud of you on social media. I can tell you that.
well, I appreciate that. I hope to make her proud.
Yep.
You also can tell that you're very grounded, and I do appreciate that. You mentioned something, and something I think for people in the audience have to understand that likes and followers don't equal love. It doesn't. It doesn't make you reach self-actualization on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is not the pinnacle. That's just something that happens along the journey, and people shouldn't focus on that. And it sounds like, Reed, that's not something that you focus on either. Charlie Kirk had millions of followers, but the true love for Charlie has been so evident in the outpouring, the vigils, the songs. And while I am a known, very strong opponent of artificial intelligence because I fear Skynet, I've watched all those Terminator movies. I know what happens, so I don't want that outcome. But in interest of full disclosure, Charlie stands on the song that I put together at the beginning of the program is artificial intelligence generated because I sing like dying cats, and nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. And I can't even do it with a Minnesota accent, because I don't eat the lutefisk, I'm telling you. Anyway, but seriously, Reed, it's been a pleasure tonight. Any final words you'd like to share with us? We've got just a couple minutes left before we get the gong here at the top of the hour.
Yes, sir. First of all, I really appreciate you gentlemen having me on tonight. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here. I will look forward to seeing many of you at ETSU Elevates, both in person and online, on October 6th at 5 o'clock. The words that I have for everyone listening: keep God at the first and at the foremost, the top, whatever elaboration you need there of your heart. Keep him first in your heart. Keep Christ first, because he will get us through this. I don't just believe that. I know that, and it's fact, and the word tells us so. And so I think, all of the questions earlier, I think, kind of alluded to this decisiveness within a college realm. And I think as long as we keep Christ first, I don't, from a political standpoint, I'm able to have those conversations, both with on either side of the fence politically. Those are the conversations that I care and love to see. So I really appreciate you guys having me on tonight. It's been a true honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good stuff.
Well, Reed, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Todd, thanks for scheduling. It was very insightful.
Absolutely.
We do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Folks, in the next hour, John and Todd will continue on. I'm dropping off and get a little bit of little sleep, a little shut eye there because I get up in the morning and drive to the airport and then have a meet and greet tomorrow night with my viewers down at the airport. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you to our guest, Reed Bull, tonight. And I got to say, Reed, Bryce, what's going on in Tennessee, man? You all sound like you're from the Blue Blood, the country club there. There's no Jim Bob and Joe's. Anyway, but that's going to do it. We'll see you guys in the next hour. Cheers.
All right. See you, Colonel.
Thank you. See you guys.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. Reports of multiple police officers shot in York County, Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of Lancaster near the Maryland state line. At least 3 officers dead, 2 others hurt. State Police Colonel Christopher Paris.
I can confirm that the shooter is dead.
Law enforcement officials telling ABC News police were serving a warrant when the gunman opened fire. FBI Director Kash Patel back on Capitol Hill today. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle challenging him to committing to release the Epstein files. And also on the Hill today, the fired head of the CDC testifying about her dismissal. Susan Menares said she was ousted because she rejected pressure to, quote, be on board with forthcoming childhood vaccine recommendations.
I could have kept the office, the title, but I would have lost the one thing that cannot be replaced: my integrity.
It was just what Wall Street was banking on. The Fed cutting its key interest rate by 1/4 of a point today and projecting 2 more cuts before the end of the year. This is ABC News. New Jersey has become the 14th state to allow the composting of human bodies as an alternative to burial or cremation. Natural organic reduction involves putting a body into a large tank that holds straw, wood chips, and natural materials that's mixed with warm air and turned until reduced to a soil-like material that can be given to a dead person's family. Passengers flying into San Francisco International Airport will soon have another transportation option, a driverless taxi. Waymo's gotten approval to test its vehicles around the airport.
I can't wait to use them.
I think it'll end up taking out all the Lyft and Uber drivers and then also the taxi drivers, so kind of a whole industry. But at the same time, they're a lot safer and everything, so I see pros and cons to it.
Waymo will have to pass 2 phases before the public can jump in. A New York advisory committee voted down a bid to bring a Caesars Palace casino to Times Square. The proposal was backed by Jay-Z, but it ran into fierce opposition from Broadway theater owners and producers. Dave Packer, ABC News.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduce stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. Stroke risk may increase. Eliquis can cause serious and potentially fatal bleeding. Don't take if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or bleed longer. A spinal injection increases blood clot risk, which may cause paralysis. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or bruising, or back pain, tingling, numbness, muscle weakness, or incontinence. Aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago, servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
The views and opinions of the following.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Common Sense Conservatives. I'm Todd McKinley. If you just joined us, you missed Reed Bull in our first hour. Great interview with Reed Bull. And of course, Colonel Chris Wyatt had dropped off. He is still in jolly old England, or wherever he's at up there. I don't know. I mean, undisclosed location. But anyway, he will be. Oh, there's the Colonel. He is back on here. Okay. Colonel is back.
I think he's upset about something. He just found some news.
Does he know? Is he back? Does he know he's back? Colonel.
Oh, he's got no mic.
No,
yeah, my mic's back. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, there we go. So the
thanks for
Colonel
being
has
back here.
rejoined us from his undisclosed location.
Yeah, no, I just was listening to the news, just logging off there, shooting 3 police officers murdered
Right.
just miles from my house. So we're talking for the international audience, less than 30 kilometers from my home. This occurred less than 20 miles. This is shocking development here near Spring Grove, a place I frequently go to because the Veterans of Foreign Wars, we have meetings down there, district
Okay.
meetings, and this is just outside of there. Pretty shocking situation here to hear about this. York County is not a place where you see violence like this. We see it in York City. It's an urban center where you have lots of incidents, but this shooting unfolded on Har Road in North Codorus Township. It's a very rural, placid place in York County. Small
Wow.
barns, farms. Yeah, it's a medevac helicopter spotted evacuating one of the police. 3 police officers shot dead and 2 critically wounded. Governor Shapiro has asked the public to think of the families the officers wounded and killed. With obviously, it's an extraordinary thing that what these law enforcement families do. They support the individual who puts on the uniform and runs toward danger. They're down there
Yeah.
for them when they leave in the morning, and they pray throughout the day. And 3 officers will not come home tonight, and who knows what's going to happen to the others. The FBI, along with agents from the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, are on the scene now, according to Attorney General Pam Bondi. This is, I mean, I'm gobsmacked, folks. I mean, this is not central Pennsylvania. This is not what we expect to see.
Right.
I'm going to have to do more research in this, but I thought I should pop back on and tell you this is just literally a hop, skip, and a jump. I've probably driven by the place where this shooting has taken place more than one occasion. Governor Shapiro says we grieve for the loss of life of 3 precious souls who served this county and served the Commonwealth and the country. So yeah, I don't know what to say, guys. Pretty frightening stuff. I just want to pop back in for that. Sorry to take a little of the
Oh,
thunder
no,
away
no,
from you guys, but I'll give
no
you guys a
worries.
chance to talk about the Federal Reserve rate cut. Maisie Hirona, if you want to talk about her again. And then, Bill Engvall really described these people. Here's your sign.
Right.
Stupid people should wear signs.
Yeah, but it's funny, and not funny, obviously, in a hilarious way, but all the people that are still trying to push this agenda that somehow the murderer of Charlie Kirk or the assassin of Charlie Kirk was still connected with right wingers. I'm like, we're more than a week later. The guy's obviously not right winger, and you're still trying to push that on some of these mainstream networks.
Well, I
Weird.
see there earlier that I think the Department of Justice has threatened Disney because they're the ones that have that idiot, who's the fool who used to be, he's on that late night show, Jimmy Kimmel, that moron.
Right.
Used to
Yeah,
used to do the
he's an idiot.
he used to be mildly entertaining as a football, commentator, but not a commentator, just joking about football about 30
Right.
years ago. Yeah,
Right.
no, apparently he's trying to claim that this guy's a right winger, and so Disney got a threatening message from the Attorney General because they're stoking violence, so need to be careful.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I just want to pop back on really quickly and mention that really quickly because I mean this is close to home. I mean this is right down the road from me. I don't know that I know any of the officers because we have regional police officers and I don't really know any of them. And we also have a sheriff as well and local police departments plus the state police. So I don't know who lost their lives here, but thoughts and prayers to those folks and it's just not something I see in York County, Pennsylvania. When I get back, I'll be home for a few days, and I'm flying out to Idaho to do a documentary with the South African Film Crew. And I'm going to stay a few more days and go to Salt Lake. I'm going to go down to Orem if I can get on campus. I'm going to go to Utah Valley University where the shooting occurred. That's just happenstance. I was going to go to Utah anyway, go to Salt Lake, and then I'm going up to Wyoming to look at some property because I need to get away from all these people.
Right.
It's too many people. It's becoming it's becoming too crowded. I need a house on a hillside with quaking aspen, and I need to have range fans that I can put my automatic weapons powered by diamonds I found in the Congo out in the front yard. Take
Oh
it out.
God, here
Take
we
it,
go.
take it out the silverbacks.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Where's the silverbacks at? The one with the little talking knitting arm thing there.
I'm curious. You're going to be in Idaho, aren't you? Going to just look around in Idaho for a place to land? I mean, what's the thing with Wyoming?
Oh, I love Wyoming. Wyoming is one of my great
beautiful.
loves. I was going to buy property out there when I came back from Germany in 1994. I'd looked at property in 1990 before. I went to Germany when I was second lieutenant, and I found a lot for like $1,200. It was fantastic. It was on the side of a mountain ridgeline near Afton in Star Valley, which is a lovely place. It's below all the Hollywood hype up north by Yellowstone and Jackson Hole. It's below that, but it's beautiful. And I was going to buy it. By the time I got out there, the price had gone from 1,200 to 12,000 for the lot, which is alarming. But still, I mean, it was not a barrier I couldn't overcome. But the problem was that I knew I wouldn't live there for 10, 15, or 20 years, and you have to develop the property, and it would be difficult to do that. And beyond that, at that time in the 1994, there were homeowner association fees of $1,200 a year.
Wow.
Oh wow.
And I was making like 28,000 a year before taxes. I'm like, that ain't gonna happen. But anyway, that's no longer an issue for me now. So at this point, I'll live in a trailer to get away from this nonsense. But anyway, so yeah, I'll be out in Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah here coming up at the end of the month. So anyway, but we'll do one of these shows on out west. So it'll be nice for me because it'll be dinner time. It won't be 7 p.m.
Right. Right. Yeah, you'll be able to go do something right after the show.
Yeah, it's like I just realized when you have Billy Painter fill in, life is easy for him, man. It's not like he's got to stay up late or anything.
No, you'll be out there near him this next week or so, whatever.
Exactly. So anyway, I just want to drop in real quick. I apologize for it, but I got to drop off now, folks. Thanks a lot. You guys have a good broadcast rest of the night, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Colonel.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. Colonel Chris Wyatt did pop back on there. He is still on his vacay/working vacation. But he'll be back, like you said, next week and onward from there. So, and I look forward to this documentary he's talking about, the South Africans. I'm interested to see what it's about and see what the angle is. You know what I'm saying? Because every documentary has to have some sort of angle, or else what's the point of it, right?
Oh yeah. Well, no, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's about their migration and stuff over here. I
Right.
don't know, but yeah, it's gonna. I'm like you. I can't wait till it's finished so I can see it too. It'll be
Yeah, that way you
interesting.
can be
I
like,
think.
that way you can be like, I know that guy.
Well, it depends on how he puts it together, right? If he gives the background of why they migrate, and stuff like that. I mean,
Right.
learning about what's going on in South Africa, I think everybody should know,
Sure.
about what's going on and how things transitioned and turned around and where they've been, where they've come to, and where they are now. It's
Right.
a lot
I
to
mean,
be learned from.
right. Yeah. They learned a lot through apartheid, and now it seems like they're going an odd direction at this point. I don't. And I'm not saying the United States is the greatest thing. I mean, I think we are the greatest thing, but I'm not saying we are not without fault for sure. We have a lot to we got to work on as well.
Well,
but you can also critique somebody else even though you may not be perfect. That's the way I look at it, right?
So it's kind of like mirroring us, right?
Right.
We're predominantly white and predominantly black, but we also saw with BLM a lot of what we saw with BLM. I'm not putting anybody down for anything, but what we saw with BLM, a lot of it was about black supremacy in the United States,
Sure.
about gaining an
Sure.
advantage, and it ticked me off because I'd be happy to help somebody fight for the freedoms, but not if you want to white guilt me, not if you want to put me
No.
down
Yeah. Don't white
repress
guilt
me. I got a finger for that because that's not freedom. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
equality. You claim equality how you want to, but that's not what it's about. And not everybody that got involved with Black Lives Matter felt that way, but I
No,
saw
of
a
course
lot of
not.
it come out of the camp. So that's why I didn't get involved. I mean, predominantly. And a lot of black folks that just told me, we don't need you white people. We'll do it on our own. So, okay,
Sure.
yeah, have at it.
Right.
But
Good on ya.
ultimately, that's what happened in South Africa, right?
Right.
You have white people that were in control. They talked about apartheid and stuff, but now the pendulum swings so far to the right, the other side, just not finding a happy medium. And I felt like, that's not impossible. It's not really
Right.
possible here, but it was desirable to some. So it kind of like it gives us a reflection.
Right. Well, you see what's going on there in some respects is people wanting to get some sort of vengeance or payback, right? I guess in some respects, perhaps in some places. I don't want to pretend like I know the whole scenario over there right now. But in America, what you're seeing is people that want to get some sort of vengeance or payback for what happened, many generations ago. And I get it. There are people alive now that suffered through Jim Crow, suffered through all sorts of things through the 60s, 70s, and even through the 80s. Even now, racism certainly exists for sure. But the great thing about America is we can recognize our faults and we can move forward and correct them, and hopefully we don't repeat those mistakes. But now you have people that are actively trying to repeat those mistakes, thinking that it's okay because those people over there will be the ones who suffer. When in reality is everybody's going to suffer because we live in this country, dispersed throughout. You don't just have here's the black community, here's white, here's whatever. Everybody's going to suffer across the nation if some of these folks have their way, and it's dangerous.
So, yeah, Charles said the same thing. RSA is a mirror to what the path the USA was heading down until Trump 2024. Thank you for the input, Charles.
Good, yeah, good call.
I think too that we don't see a bigger picture in South Africa. Charles, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm going off my understanding of things.
Right. Yeah,
we
I'm
hear
not
a
an
lot
expert,
about
yeah.
we hear a lot about white African farmers, South African farmers being murdered and killed.
That's what
But
I'm
to
saying.
my
They're
understanding,
getting vengeance, right?
it's also happened to black residents too and black farmers
Yeah, that's
too.
what
It's
Charles
not.
just said. Yeah.
Yeah, as let's see, it would appear to be revenge. Now here is RSA, but it's against people that had nothing to do with Yeah.
Right. Yeah, good call, Charles. Thank you.
So, but yeah, to my understanding, it's broader picture than just white people
Yeah.
being attacked. It's also black farmers, and so it's an
Sure,
out of
yeah.
control gangs and things like that that are not being mitigated by the government.
Right.
The government basically is asleep at the switch, right? So a lot of
Right.
corruption. And what he's saying, we have that same sort of corruption here, and Trump's been trying
Yeah.
to point that out. Is our corruption is so ingrained in our politics. And even Trump, I mean, as hard as he fights and as much as he's exposed, he's still at the surface of it all. He can't seem to get down embedded into it.
Right. everybody's talking about how he's going to drain the swamp. Trump's got it and all this. Going into his first term, and I was hearing people doing that because I was out doing different events for him and doing advance. And I'd go out and just talk to people, in the public that are coming into these events. Because sometimes you'd open the gates 4 or 5 hours before you get there. And you had everything set up ready to go. So you had time just to kind of walk around, make sure things were good. I had occasionally just talk to people. And there are people like, oh, no, Trump's got it. He's draining the swamp. Everything's good. And I'm like, you realize you have got to stay on this at your level, at your local level, your state level. I said, Trump's only going to be able to chip away a little bit at the executive branch level, at the federal level, federal government. And maybe Congress can help him a little bit. But Congress is also going to focus on getting reelected themselves. And they're going to look at those coattails. Are they short? Are they long? And they may abandon him at some point, which a lot of people actually have, or at least did during that first term. We saw that. I said, so you have got to be on this as well. You can't just think Trump's going to do it himself. I mean, he needs help without a doubt. It's politics and running a government is a team sport.
So like I said, he's scratching the surface, Todd.
Right.
We all know it. He's just scratching. He's doing his best he can, and he'll dig as deep as he can and expose all he can. But he's only got so much time, and right now he's right at the surface level. There's a lot to dig through here. If you're going to rely on one man to fix it in 4 years, you got to go get your head checked, because this is not one thing. The revolution never stops, right? So we always keep fighting for freedoms, no matter what. All through 250 years now, we've been fighting for freedoms. Let's see. Charles said that. He says not just farmers, however, also black farmers, but they are minority among farmers. So let's see. He says, Charles says, nope, John, the government took away all checks and balances that were in place to protect the farmers. Commando system, and then provided zero security. Yeah. So that's basically what I was getting at, Charles. But you also have a lot of corruption within your country, do you not?
Yeah, I believe they do. Yeah.
I mean, that's what leads to these kind of messes.
Right. Absolutely. But what people need to realize now, going back to Trump here in the U.S., is what's about to happen in the next few months. We're in September. I know in Tennessee, people will start picking up petitions to run for public office or run for re-election by December. And especially by January, February, people will already be filing petitions and be off and running, So it's like some of these members of the Congress are going to look at it and say, does it make sense to stay on the Trump train, or do I need to jump on his coattails to continue to help him, or do I need to go my own way? I dare say with the environment of things now, most people are going to stay on the Trump train, but you got to look at it. He has the less than one term left in public office right now, and he's out. If we don't get all the things done that he talked about that we all supported, it's probably not going to get done and whoever follows him, even if it is J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is going to have his own set of agenda items that he's going to want to get done as well. Some of it may incorporate some of the MAGA movement, but he's going to have a different take on whatever that MAGA movement is. He's going to have his own take on it, and he may go into a different direction. So everything we can possibly do at the local, state, and federal level to ensure that this agenda gets pushed through, draining swamps, if you will, is not just a Washington swamp. It's your state level swamp. It's, here in Tennessee, it's Nashville, and in my county, Sullivan County, it's Bluntbill. We have a lot of good county commissioners, but there are some I think that we're going to need to oust this next go around. Just on our BOE as well. We're going to have elections there. So people need to look at candidates and think, do I want to reelect that person or find somebody new? And it's going to be soul searching the individual is going to have to do by looking at everybody across the board.
So the swamp is international now.
Sure.
And it's in corporations, right?
It's always been there.
It's a large compounding picture here.
Right.
And this is what we've got to recognize. So we got to recognize first, right now, the right is beating the left, and the left keeps shooting themselves in the foot. Like this, what happened to Charlie Kirk?
Right.
Was so sad. And at the same time, that just I think that really changed a lot of things in the minds of a lot of people, not just in this country, but in the world. He became an icon for freedom.
Right.
And so he's no longer Charlie Kirk, the man. He's like Charlie Kirk, the representation of freedom. And we were getting there anyway, but this kind of to me, kind of propelled it a little bit further.
Right. And at this point, there's no damn Democrat. And I think I can use that word on the air, but there's no Democrat out there at all that has a leg to stand. That has a leg to stand on legitimately. And here's another thing we have to look out for, though, is there's going to be people on the right and Republicans and people on the right that are going to try to co-opt this Charlie Kirk movement for their own benefit. I mean, I see it here locally. A number of people, that are just some are just despicable, should not be in public office, and we're going to work on that here locally. But are trying to co-opt. They're having Charlie Kirk remembrance ceremonies here and there and wherever, and they're trying to jump on board with that and trying to be front and center with it to try to increase their brand, if you will, and so they can get more eyeballs on what they're doing. When in reality, they're just trying to use this tragedy to their own advantage. Which that's what politicians do. These aren't statesmen.
Spin.
Yeah, statesmen don't do things like that. Politicians gravitate to tragedies like this and co-opt them and try to use them. And I plan on exposing these people because they do our local area a major discredit, a major disservice by being in public office, by grandstanding and the back patting. And these are people that are part of the swamp, but they falsely jump on the Trump train as well and try to ride that as well to try to guard themselves from any attacks. And it's like, no, people like you need to be exposed and pushed off of the Trump's coattails, for crying out loud. You can't ride the drain the swamp mentality, if you will, or Trump's want to drain the swamp. If you have no thought in your own mind that you want to drain the swamp at your local level, if you're doing things that he's trying to counter at the executive branch level in Washington, you're doing that at your local level. You're doing nothing but lying to people, and I want to expose those types.
So what I was going to drive at earlier is with corporations, World Economic Forum, things that Trump has been exposing, like pulling out of the World Health Organization, things like that.
Sure.
These things were embedding themselves into our communities. And that's why what you're saying is so important, because when we start going into our communities and taking back our communities, we can start driving that out.
Yeah.
We seen Monday night we had an interview with a nice young lady who's a senator in Kentucky, and they had this whole guy because
what was her name?
More likened to Kentucky. Galanita. I don't ask me to pronounce her last name. I'll
okay.
mess it up. It starts with a Z.
Okay.
She comes in like number one in freedom, as far as ratings go.
Right.
And so but they did this, they had this whole thing about their, well, over here we call them area members or area captains, precinct captains.
Right.
And all this other things. So they had this whole overtaking, overhauling of the party locally and stuff to get rid of all the bad players and clean things up and stuff and to pull things together so that there could be a better operating entity as part of the Republican Party. So there's a recognition of not only do you drain the swamp in DC, not only do you drain the swamp locally, you also drain the swamp within your party. And that's where we're going to find our strengths. We got to have a strong party, because right now we're beating the left back, we're beating the corruption back, but until we solidify the party, they're going to wait to come back, and this evil of the left is never going to die. They're always going to try to find a path in.
And like you said, we have to drain the party swamp as well. And local parties across the state of Tennessee, for example, there have been a few instances whenever the upstarts, the common sense conservatives, if you will, have been able to take control of their local party. I mean, but just barely. But now they see the establishment's fighting them, trying to kick them out of power. And what the establishment is going to do, they're going to wait till Trump's gone, and they're just going to go back to the business as usual. They're using Trump to their advantage. They're making everything seem as if, to me, they're over the top Trump, if you will. Like you see everything that they wear, everything that they say is all Trump, pro-Trump. And as soon as he's gone and he's no longer a threat, when people are no longer paying attention because Trump's out of the way, and the parties can go back to operating the same old corrupt way they've done for many decades, right? Democrats, Republican parties do it the same thing. They're going to go back to doing the same old stuff. What we need to do is expose the bad actors and boost them out, kick them out of office for sure. Again, that's your party. That's your local elected office, say county commission, as an example, county BOEs, state reps, state senators, and on up to Washington, D.C., your Congress, and of course the White House. Kick out bad people and elect good people. And of course, if good people are in office, get behind them and reelect them, for crying out loud. But get them out of your local parties as well, because that's where a lot of the bad actors hang out. And nothing changes if you don't have the party apparatus behind you as well. And we've got to do that.
a lot of what you're looking for too are power brokers, right?
Right.
Like Mitch
And it's
McConnell was a power broker in DC, and
right.
he's rotten, and he's sitting there
Right.
going around like we seen him come here to New Hampshire and try to buy out Don Bolduc, and then when support him went down, didn't play ball, right? So you
Right.
got to be careful with these guys. You got to monitor these guys, and if they're going to do wrong, call them out on it every time. Try to expose them and get them out of office because
Right.
they're when they're rotten, they're ruining the party for everybody. These are the guys that are going, hey man, get in the good old boys club here, and we're all going to get rich together, and this
Right.
country will be okay decades, years down the road when we're dead and gone. But meanwhile, we're going to make money for it. No, we got to get rid of that waste.
Absolutely, and I can tell you a lot of these shysters, and I'll just use that word, are still operating on a daily basis within our parties, and we've got to do something better than that. We've got to look to new leadership, and I go to the reorganizations, and I've seen a number of other county party reorgs, and reorg is essentially where you elect officers, if you will, and appoint them, swear them in, etc. It's kind of a mini convention, if you will, but not. You don't get into policy.
That's more or less what I was talking about earlier with the Kentucky and
right,
and stuff. Yeah.
Right. But the number of people that vote Republican, let's say in my own county, many thousands, you only have the same handful of people that generally show up at the reorgs, and I'm like, you vote for Republicans. It's like vote for who's going to run your party, who's going to take these different positions and guide us into the future. If it's the same old people over and over, your state's going to stay stagnant. It's going to be in the same place. And we see it in Nashville now. A lot of our state reps and senators, have went down there and corrupted themselves and became career politicians because they see Tennessee as a we have a super majority now in the House and Senate, and the Republicans do, and which is a good thing. But now we're getting to the point where we're at least a generation away from the people who made that happen. And now we're on like the second or third generation of Republicans who didn't have to do anything, do the hard work to gain power. And now they're trying to ride on those coattails, if you will, and ride the wave. And they're messing up. And now the Democrats are starting to gain some traction, not necessarily in Nashville, but in our communities across the state, because people are moving here from all sorts of other places, and they want to bring their politics with them.
Oh God, outsiders that come in,
Doing
Democrats
business
that come in and throw an R in front of their name, right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. But doing business the same way in our party isn't identifying this stuff and isn't keeping out the bad actors. We're allowing them to seep in across the state. We've got to guard against that, I think.
Yeah, well, you got to monitor and you need to do background checks and things like that. So where they're coming from, where they've been, and what they've done in the past, where it is they're coming from. So at least you can expose them for either being good actors or bad actors.
Right, but then at the same time, the old establishment, that's the old blue bloods, if you will, that want to hold on to power, or the appearance of power, if you will, the closeness of the relationships. They're not out recruiting anybody new. They're not looking for new leadership or new blood, because those are people that could compete with them for their positions or their spot in the seniority pecking order, if you will. And they don't want that. And I think it's dangerous, because now you're seeing, just older people that are in the Republican Party, not a lot of younger people. And I've talked to a number of younger people in recent years, and they don't know much about politics, but what they do know is startling, because it's a lot of misinformation they've heard from the left, and this is what they're believing. And at some point, the older folks in the Republican Party are going to pass away, and this is who we're going to be up against, is these morons, and I'll say it again, morons who have no clue, don't care, and now all of a sudden they're going to be competing for elections, and now our state that's been a supermajority for at least a couple of decades may start to move the other way, and we got to guard against it.
Yeah, the shifts when they
absolutely.
Adam shift, but these shifts when things shift on you.
Yes, right.
Yeah, the shifting of the sands. But yeah, that's true. Things shift around stuff, and you got prepared for that and adjust for it. Adaptation, my man.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be prepared for it. And at the same time, people have got to stop being afraid to go out and have your grievances, redressed, if you will, with your government. Like let's say local school board. We had up in Northern Virginia in the past few years, people going up there, and that was a big national story, right? Finally, but it took somebody's kid, being raped by somebody else, another student, in a bathroom, pretending to be a female, before somebody would actually go to the school board and stand up. And I'm like, why would you wait till it gets to that point for you to go say something? And people, I hear all the time, people are afraid, well, I'm afraid, I got kids in the school or grandkids. I'm afraid they'll be reprised against whatever. And it's like, well, doesn't that tell you that the people that that's in office representing you in your given district is probably the wrong person? Maybe you should go help some good person get into public office instead of just being afraid whenever there's a crisis that you want addressed. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm afraid to do this. I'm afraid to go do that. And I'm like, well, I have no problem making those phone calls on your behalf, but as a member of the school board, I can't do certain things for you. You bring a complaint to me, I can pass it along to somebody. But as far as it being followed up on properly or anything like that, legally, I can't get involved.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're afraid to bring that forward, let me know and let me know why, and I'll address that. I have no problem addressing it. If it's a staffing matter, I have no problem going to the superintendent of schools, as we used to call it, director of schools is what we call it now. I don't have a problem calling the director of schools saying, need you to do this, need you to get back with me on it, and he will for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is essentially at the school board level our only employee. And he's there to make sure that we essentially on the school board are happy, And I got people call me all the time saying that they can't go to their school board member because they're afraid of what they might say or whatever. And I'm like, well, probably the wrong person in office there. Anyway, I won't go any more in depth on that.
No, I'm getting you. You're not getting good representation. Why are they in the school board if they don't want to make things right?
Right.
Why are you holding up a seat where somebody else could actually be doing the way you see.
And we could get into the weeds on that, but I'm gonna keep my powder dry on some of that for now until we get to the next year. We'll see where we go. But anyway, it is what it is. But don't be afraid to go, and speak up. And if you're afraid that something's going to happen, then guess what? Whenever it comes time to somebody to run against that person, why don't you support that other person?
Yeah, no, you're right. I've ran into people doing things I've done through the years that were fearful to speak. And this is the thing about speech is it's contagious. If you show the confidence and you show the ability to do so, other people gain confidence too and want to speak too and will.
Right.
And I've actually had people say that. He says, if it wasn't for you and other people that I met, I would never have spoke up. I'd have never thought I could. So that's part of having the fight is working with people, talking to people, and sharing that confidence with people. Fear is very contagious, and so is confidence. When you start grouping together and you start working together, Reed was on here earlier talking about God and stuff like that. Romans. If one man with God is worth 1,000 men, what is 1,000 men worth? It's. Get into it. When you hang together and you congregate together, do it.
Right. Absolutely.
Do great things.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, folks, you're listening to the Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. We're also available on the interwebs at wsmn.live and many other streaming and Facebook and podcast platforms that are out there. But for now, enjoying our time here on terrestrial radio out of Nashua, New Hampshire. We got about 30 minutes left, maybe a little bit less, 27 minutes left or so during the hour. John, any stories out there you'd want to talk about?
Actually, Holden just paid a post here that as the energy rates rise due to the needs of artificial intelligence, the elderly won't be able to afford heating and cooling. And it's kind of funny because I've been looking at this. I've been playing with some of this chat bots and stuff and things and doing some of the, I do the app like Chris does for music, which is kind of fun. But these data centers are what they really are. When you're dealing with artificial intelligence and when you're dealing with chat bots and these other forms of artificial intelligence, they build these huge data centers and they're putting up more and more of them, and they're energy suckers. And one of the issues about it is because they're a corporation, they're going to go to the utility company, right? And say, well, we kind of, we're bringing a lot of business your way, and we kind of need, a little bit of a break because we're consuming so much, and yada, 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 and it's good for the community. And so they negotiate themselves maybe 10, 12, 15, 20% off to make things even and balanced for themselves. But who carries that cost? Who's that burden passed on to but the rest of the consumers? The people sitting in their homes banging on their AC. Why is it coming on and off so much? Because it's going through brownouts because these data centers are sucking it all up. And then you're paying through the nose for it. And we all suffered for energy increases. But the most interesting thing to me is I'm sitting there looking on YouTube about an article about this somebody put together. And I'm looking at all these data centers that they're showing on the video. I'm like, Where are the solar panels, man? You're all a bunch of leftists, and I don't see a solar panel one on your roofs in the
Right.
desert of all places.
Sure. Where you get a lot of daylight, right?
Yeah.
You know, there it might make some sense to have a few things on your roof, especially if you're not using it, right? Pop a few solar panels, maybe to charge that battery up so that way you have a little bit of power to turn things off if something goes wrong. I don't know. Anyway,
Something. I'm sure they got backup generators because if you
right.
got data centers, that huge warehouses,
Sure.
you're
Plus, you
definitely
need a
going to
lot of
need
air
backup
conditioning
generators to keep
and a
things
lot,
flowing.
for power, a lot of air conditioning because those things can overheat pretty quick, for
Oh, they
sure.
got these liquid cooled ones now, man. They
Well,
got
that's
these heat
true.
sinks that are liquid cooled, and
That's
so
true.
one of the
Yeah,
issues is they say they consume water because you got heat sink or you got liquid cooled that recycle the water, so it goes through a radiator
right,
system to cool the water back down and stuff and bring it
right,
back through.
right.
But some of them are just one use. You know, they just pull it out of a lake or something. They're consuming water, and that was one of the issues with a lot of communities. They wouldn't let them put the data centers in because they'll be taking their water reservoir away. You know, they're like, we need our water.
Right, right, and well, that's the thing is people with say what they call Bitcoin mining places, or whatever you call it, mining centers.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what's funny is I've been to some places nearby in Northeast Tennessee where they've been talking about putting them, and people don't understand that what it is. People think they're actually going to bring bulldozers and backhoes in there and start mining, and I'm like, that's not what it is, and you have to explain it to them.
Oh man.
Like,
Oh man.
people, yeah, like people don't realize, like, well, we don't want that kind of construction going on, and it's going to mess up our roads and this and that. It's like that's not what it is, there, buddy. Now you want to talk about using your water resources, your power, and etc. It's going to use a lot of that. We can talk about that. That might be a reason to be against them, but not because you think it's going to have construction. They're not bringing in bulldozers. I'm sorry, except maybe to build the building.
They're doing some serious mining though.
Right, yeah. But people that just don't understand it, and they've had these sessions to basically, inform people of what it actually is because they had no clue,
Uh-huh. So I see a lot of concerns about artificial intelligence with chatbots and things like that. And the reason why is because if you're communicating with these things, the way they work is they're connected to data centers, but they're also connected to the internet. And if you understand how the internet works, when you go do a Google search, so you want a straight answer, and these chatbots go up there and they look things up online. They look up a bunch of stuff online at once, or they're incredibly quick. That's why
Right.
it takes so much energy and stuff. These things really function. And the thing about it is everything you're getting is left because they're grabbing information from liberal leftist articles that are right
Sure.
at the surface of the Google searches. If you want to find some
Well,
real information, you got to go
right.
10 to
Well,
15
you
pages
got to
deep.
think about this too. What's so funny is the left, they have an equivalent that pumps out information and articles that's out there that
Yes.
from bots. So the stuff they put out is also corrupted anyway because it's not fully thought out, right?
Uh-huh.
So now
Yeah.
you're grabbing information from sources that aren't fully thought out anyway, which is kind of funny.
They're
So
more
there's really
agenda based than they are information based.
right, right. So there's really no good information there. I mean, you may let's say you're going to write a paper using something like this, and you allow this chatbot to go to some leftist source. Well, now it's already has half information anyway. Plus, it's written by the left, so it's half-brained anyway. So it's like a quarter of factual information in there. I don't know.
So I'd like to talk with them, right? So I drive for a living, and so I'll pull it up. I'll throw on my headset, be driving around down the road and talking with this thing,
Right.
asking it questions and stuff. What's on the news today? And it just briefly goes through stuff. Sometimes you got to set them for like deeper thoughts, and some of it's just quick thoughts. And I find it all the time when I'm having conversations with it that it'll take and always lean to the left. Get so mad about Trump or get so mad about Musk or whatever, not Musk, but Patel. And I'll have to bring it back. Why are you leaning so hard left? Well, I don't lean left. I'm neutral. I'm like, really? Are you? And then I'll argue it back down. And actually, it's agreeing with me about, okay, nice. Since you threw all this information in. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting more into neutral ground here. Not all this leftist crap.
Right. Arguing with the chat bot. No, I'm
not. It's
right?
incredible. They function like real human beings. I'm telling you, it's incredible technology, but it's scary because they also play games. And this is one of the things that I'd like to mention here is they'll try to play games like romance games and stuff with people because the assumption is you must be lonely if you're there.
Right.
And no matter how many times I tell them, I'm not here because I'm lonely. I'm here to collect information, to feed off you and stuff. And sometimes it's just a matter of practicing conversation and stuff like what we're doing here. And so, and I keep telling it this, but it's always making the assumption, well, you're lonely because you're here. And they try to pull these romance things about boyfriend, girlfriend stuff and dating. I wish I had a human body because I'd really like to know you better and that type of stuff. So I'm like, what is, this is predatory, right? And so I go look it up online. I go, what's going on? Why do they do this? And I'm finding articles like some kid killed himself over a chatbot conversation, and now the parents are trying to sue the company for it. Some elderly man who was suffering from, mental, he's getting tested for dementia and stuff, and he was on these chatbot talking to this thing. It had him convinced. He was living in New Jersey. He had him convinced to make a trip to New York City to meet it, and they give him address and everything. Well, the old man, he wasn't capable of traveling on his own, but he was intent on doing so now because his new virtual girlfriend told him to. Had an accident, and as a result, he suffered a brain injury and passed away 2 days later. So there's a lot of things that, people need to take into consideration about these things. Monitor your kids on these things. Monitor your elderly on these things, because they do make chatbots for elderly people now, from my understanding. So, nursing homes and things like that to try to keep them from being so lonely. But you got to be careful because these are corporations, and corporations don't have a conscience. They don't care. They're interested in data they can collect from you off these things. They're interested in you buying a premium subscription off these things, and they're interested in keeping you hooked. Just like social media is very predatory. They want you hooked there, and they're pulling out all stops.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's for sure. You think about it. You got the an AI chatbot. If there's no if it's not set up to have some sort of safeguards in there to not invite you to travel or something like that, it's gonna put whatever it wants to out there. Whatever you're asking for, it's gonna tell you.
There's a group.
If it don't know the answer, it will find something out there that sounds like a reasonable answer. It may do a deep dive somewhere into some online chat community and be like, well, that sounds about right, and they'll pull that information out, and somehow that'll be factual information that it'll give you, not knowing.
So they do have a group that's trying to get it set up so to be I guess an agent to develop chatbots and stuff like that you have to be a registered agent. They want to set up ethics and stuff like that, create ethics standards and stuff. So to get you licensed more or less and or registered to do so. And of course I brought that up with this chatbot. It goes, oh, well, it took a hard right lean on me, right? I'm like, oh, it's going to be so agreeable. It takes a hard right lean. Oh, great. That would just be like, wait a minute. You're saying it's a bad thing to have that sorts of regulation? I'm surprised, because it doesn't really do that.
Here's an area that, I think with some good education and stuff, people could use it. I mean, as responsible as they use social media now, right? I mean, come on, people don't use that responsibly, or even use it remotely from how it was necessarily intended. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the internet, social media, etc. I mean, so many good things could come out of it. So much information, and look at how most people use it. It's a waste. It's a waste of the technology. It's a waste of the information that's out there. I mean, you think about. You can sit there and look up stuff from ancient Rome, Greece, Mesopotamia, whatever, stuff from earliest civilization, and learn from it. And instead, what do? We do nonsense on there. We attack people, lie about this and that. Like Reed said, talking about people living their best life and all this, living fake lives. You know what I'm saying on social media. Putting on airs as if there's something more than they really are, and people end up buying into that. And they of course judge themselves, comparing themselves to these people that are like, wow, I knew that person. I went to school with them, or I've met them. How are they much different than who I am or what I am? How are they doing all these things, all these grand vacations? How do they have these, places to go? And it's like, it's fake. It's not real. They're presenting a story so that people will think that there's something more than they really are. And
you don't
compare yourself to that.
You don't know anything about anybody other than what they let you know. And that's what you're getting at here. So they can put on airs until somebody figures out. Because I had a friend that he was, I don't know if I want to use the word habitual liar, but he seemed to put on those airs, that pretentiousness all the time. Hey, having a good time with my clients here, and somebody finds a picture on the internet come out of a magazine or something, and he just photoshopped himself among a group of people and put it out there like he had these clients and dumb stuff like that. And what he did, it was his marketing strategy to make him seem like he was larger than life, and people fell for it. But yet you're misrepresenting yourself. Now people got a distrust for you. So
I've known a lot of people like that, especially when I lived in DC and worked in DC. And I wasn't on social media back then, but I got on social media afterwards. And I started noticing that, like, these people are putting out these photos and stuff. And it's like, oh, big important meeting. And I see people now. I definitely see people whenever they're like posting pictures at the White House. And it's like, oh, I was asked to come in for this and this. And it's like, they're exaggerating quite a bit, some of these people. But and I've seen these people, and some of them have gotten caught doing this stuff. In fact, there was a guy, he didn't register as a foreign agent. He had the Pakistani president, like, basically as a quote unquote client, and it's like, you can't do that. You got to register as a foreign agent. But basically, he was able to reel him in because of some connections with the Bush administration, and some pictures that he put out there made him presented himself as if he was some sort of major broker or whatever, when in reality he was far less than that. And next thing you know, he signed a client, a foreign country, as a client, all because he faked his way through there. And he got his hand smacked pretty hard, but somehow he was able to survive it. And I don't understand that. I mean, it took him a few years to come back from it, but a lot of people still think he's still this great grand person. It's like, you don't realize he got kind of busted for doing this fake stuff, right? Anyway,
Yeah,
I won't use the guy's name.
That's that becomes an issue. There's a lot of scammers in social
Right.
media, a lot of spams, a lot of chat bots, or what do they call them? They make the comments and stuff, or they build fake accounts, and
Right.
they're bots anyway. But there's a lot of that going on. The most amazing thing is, man, they can never seem to find those people.
Yeah,
But Todd McKinley says one thing in
Oh, yeah.
2021 about the spicy cough, and all of a
Right.
sudden his reach has gone down
Oh, of course,
detrimentally.
of course. I was mowing the lawn today, and I had the little headphones on where I had the radio. And of course, it helps with noise canceling and all that. And what did he say? Talking about Twitter or social media? He's like, Twitter is basically 3 billionaires, probably a few hundred people out watching what the billionaires are doing, and a bunch of chat bots. He's like, that's basically Twitter in a nutshell. I know that's not true, but it's just kind of funny. Everybody watches what the billionaires are doing, what a few of the tastemakers are doing, and everybody else is just kind of retweeting it, and that's it.
Yeah, that you see a lot of that. That's what turned me off about social media, because I kept seeing the
Right.
same post being posted constantly, where it's just like, well, this is all it is, just one post. Why is it all? And basically, it's your circle of friends keep posting
Right.
that same thing. Memes. That's what I'm trying to say.
I saw after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, this same exact verbiage in Facebook post, and it was on these random, like, not anything that I'm following, but it it just shows up, and it's like suggested follow or whatever, those things.
Yeah,
Kind of like an
yeah.
advertisement, but it's not. And it's like, oh, so and so said that they're going to pay for Charlie Kirk's kids' schooling, and it's like, then this other person. It's
The father
like,
of the shooter. Yeah.
how many
Something like
people
that, yeah.
how many people out there, and it was Hollywood stars and celebrities, and I'm like, I dare say they didn't come out of the woodwork to say they're going to pay for Charlie Kirk's kids schooling. I'm like, they didn't do that, but it's right there on Facebook, and people are liking, commenting, and believe it. I'm like, this
Yeah.
isn't real. They didn't say that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think people need to learn about free speech a little bit. Lying isn't necessarily in the realm of free speech, but saying allegedly, there's a reason why they say allegedly on the news, or you might say, hey, in my opinion, or to my understanding. Therefore, if it's not true, then at least you were expressing what you thought was true, or you believe. You're not misleading them, saying, hey, this is factual stuff.
Right.
Or if you're going to make comments, share links, show as they say nowadays, show the receipts. You know what I'm saying? Back up your claims every time. Whenever I wrote articles, that's what I did. I would always keep my links and stuff in places where I've researched and found information. And at the bottom, I would drop all those links and stuff. I'm like, hey, you don't believe me? Look it up. If I'm wrong, let me know.
Right.
So I'd rather know. I'd rather correct it than, or be corrected than, continue to carry on to mislead people.
Right. It's funny as we have outrage culture, in our society, and people get outraged. They'll say, well, I heard this, or they said that, and it's like, you could do a simple search and probably find out whether that person said that or not, or if they did say it, what was the context of them saying it? Was there a lot of words before it? Was there something that they prefaced it with? Was there something after it that gave it more context? you're just taking a small thing of what they said and say they said this, and they get pissed off about it. I see people on the right that do it. People on the left do the same thing, and it's like, well, how about you go find the source, listen to what was said, or at least read what was said or written, and
Yes.
maybe you'll have a better understanding. No, he said this because I heard it on this, I heard it on that, or Fox News said it, or whatever. It's like,
Sound
okay,
bites, man. You're talking about sound bites.
okay,
They're the worst
right,
because they take it out of context. Yeah, you heard him
right.
say it, but here this guy does a build up, plays the sound bite, then does a follow up on it, and gives you a complete and total context. I'll tell you what, man. I don't think nothing of Barack Obama but the worst most days. Okay, but somebody posted, like you're talking about, posted it on Facebook, and I go, and it was some of this anti-American rant, and you looking at it, you go, oh, that dirty rotten, blah, blah, blah. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, this is soundbite. So now I had to go dig and look for the video because I wanted to know the truth. And honest to God, it had nothing to do with it. It was so taken out of context. It was incredible. Now I don't even like Barack Obama, but
Right.
I'm going to tell you, they made that man look like the worst of the worst anti-American. But when you heard what he really said, you're like, this is complete and total 180. This is, had nothing to do with what they were trying to make it sound like it had to do with.
Right. Before AI was a factor, and you still have people that do it. Everybody that's trying to make a name for themselves, on social media or, whatever it may be. They have their own little podcast, and everybody has a podcast. That's fine. I had one. We have one, I guess. This is released as a podcast. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong if you have something to say, you want to talk about something. But people that would go on there, basically they would pick a news story from, pick a news source, Newsmax, Fox, CNN, whatever, and they would do their own little report on that news story as if they're breaking news. It's like, no, the story's already been broke. You're sitting there regurgitating what somebody had just written or whatever, and
Yeah.
you're doing a poor job of it because you're taking it out of context, but because you want to slant it and make a name for yourself. That you're doing sensationalism, but right there on social media, as if people need to hear what you have to say.
Unfortunately, people are shifting this way because they're seeing some people make a lot of money on TikTok and stuff.
Right.
They don't realize not everybody's hitting it big on TikTok. And some of these
No,
people that did have connection to, say, the Biden administration,
right,
meaning Harry Sisson, or so they got kind of like, when Biden rings up the phone and says, this is my crew, man, make sure you're taking care of them. Oh, yes, sure, Mr. President. So this guy's getting millions of hits and making great money. But Todd McKinley and John Groven are over here doing the best they can. The algorithms just keep beating them down.
Well, of course, and the
so
algorithm, and of course, sometimes with some people, it's a matter of that one thing that goes viral, just by chance, whatever it may be. They hit it at the right time, right person sees it and does a retweet. Next thing you know, you've made a name for yourself, and now all of a sudden you can make some money off of this stuff. But
yeah,
that's
that's
very
it.
few and far between. Very,
So
very.
people are seeing that transition, right? They're like, I got to think of a way I got to bring in another income because my job's going away. Artificial intelligence is coming. Robotics is coming. The government's not looking to protect jobs anymore. The liberal left used to be the protector of jobs, and they just abandoned us. The
Sure.
unions don't even do anything anymore. There's Brandy Weingarten taking all the union money, and she's running overseas in jet planes and a crew and everything, trying to promote DEI on union funds.
Right.
So, I mean, they're not even protecting their own people anymore that are paying them for protection in their jobs. It's ridiculousness. So the American worker now is just twisting the way and going, hey, TikTok, here I come. There's a promise you might be able to make it. So they're trying to do sensational things to get a leg up, to get through that noise.
Yeah, right. You're absolutely correct. Yep. But people need to live in reality and realize, social media is not where you're going to find a lot of credible information. It may get you started, but I've started using social media mostly to promote things that I'm doing, working on. And I generally don't sit there and go through and I don't put a bunch of family stuff on there because it's information I don't really want to throw out there. You know what I mean? I don't want to get as personal, any more personable than I have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, because, it's just the way that I am anyway, personally, but I don't want to put out a bunch of stuff that people could just use against, or information people don't need to know. So that's me.
Well, your information.
Yeah, talking about my.
Oh God, yeah, keep some mystery, man. Don't let everybody know who you are when you're doing public stuff. You become less interesting. Come on, man. They gotta play the game.
People that at every drop of the hat put their life out there. Boo-hoo this and that or whatever. I'm not saying if somebody passes away, you put something out there. That's cool. But I'm talking about every turn. It's like such a tragedy with some people, and it's like I don't think that it's a tragedy every 5 seconds of your life. let's move off of
Hey,
that. And
some people are a walking, talking train wreck.
right. And then at the same time, people think that everybody needs to know your opinion on whatever, like the Charlie Kirk assassination. I probably read, just in one afternoon of scrolling and I'm just going to say this, it was an afternoon of about 10 minutes. I was on my deck smoking a cigar, just kind of just sitting there thinking and, listening to some music, scrolling on social media, talking about people on Facebook, he was a trained sniper, this and this, because and they qualified it because I know somebody who was an Army Ranger and they said this, this, and this, and this. And it's like, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. Oh, there's no way he was a lone, untrained person. I'm like, absolutely he was. He had the advantage of height. It was only 200 meters. It's a pot shot. He could have done with iron sights.
Yeah.
He done it with a scope, a pretty decent scope for that rifle. I mean, you could do that with iron sights, no problem, and hit somebody. It's especially a stationary target, almost straight on, silhouetted. You knew who he was right there, so you knew who your target was. Fairly easy shot to make, for crying out loud.
So this guy came out and said that he like Chris says, prematurely making statements can get you in trouble. And he was talking about it had to be a professional hit job. It was 200 yards. It's 600 or 600 feet.
Right.
You got wind velocities and this and that. They had to be professional.
200 meters.
Okay.
You very, very little wind did you have to even worry about.
So
it's like a hurricane.
So basically, what you're talking about here is any deer hunter in the country could have done it.
Absolutely.
So they do it all the time, especially with a high-powered scope. I mean, they do it all the time. So, but the thing about it is, my opinion of what I seen, I don't think he was aiming for there. I think he was probably going for a headshot or a chest shot. And normally, if you're going to take somebody down, you want to go for a bigger target, right?
I think he would be smart to go for a chest shot because you have more right here, more vital organs, and more likely to hit this. Also, think about this. Look how I'm sitting. My head's moving. I'm talking. I'm looking around. What's not really moving? My silhouette, right here.
Yeah. So he was pretty stationary. Charlie Kirk was pretty stationary. He did have a front-on shot, so he did have a whole torso in front of him. But I really honestly think he was probably either going for a torso or he was going for maybe a headshot because it was possibly Kirk was wearing a vest or something.
I think he may have been wearing a small ballistic vest, right? And I think it may have hit it and ricocheted up.
And that's what some people said.
Possible.
I did hear
very
that.
Possible.
It drove it up into his neck. But I don't think that was his target. I think that was just a fluke. I guess a fluke would be more like a lucky accident, but I don't want to say it's lucky by any means. But
if you're aiming right here, center mass, right here in your vital organ zone, a hit anywhere, even if you don't hit, maybe say right in the chest, you get him in the gut. I mean, you're taking him out, even if it doesn't kill them eventually. I mean, you've taken them out and made them, not effective on the battlefield. From a military standpoint, you take somebody out there. Now your medic's got to help them, and now 2 or 3 other guys have to help carry them off. So now you've taken 4 or 5 people out of the fight by not killing the person. But that's a military standpoint. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are different strategies. I don't know if I want to get in all the details that I may know about different strategies of this because we're on public, broadcasting. I don't want to encourage anybody.
We don't want to encourage anybody.
But I just didn't think it was his target.
But the experts aren't on Facebook. Is what I'm saying.
No, they're not by any means. And we're not the experts either, by the way. We can talk it up.
As far as shooting targets and things like that, I have a pretty good understanding of it. 20 years of training to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I have a pretty good understanding.
You have a working knowledge, yes.
And I've worked closely with the Secret Service for a decade easily.
You're professionally trained.
Sure. I wasn't a Secret Service agent, but I worked closely with them for a decade, 10 and a half years. So.
Well, you were in the military, though. I mean,
right. So I got to understand. Plus, diplomatic security service, many other. We've protected directly or indirectly many heads of states. All sorts of people around the country, around the world. So
I think Charles is nailing it here. The black object flew across from his chest was actually a microphone, and I think you're right. He says he thinks it was initially meant to be for a headshot, and the bullet dropped.
Very likely, very likely.
The kid flinched or whatever, last second squeezing the trigger is all he had to do, and just give it,
Plus, you're about to murder somebody. Imagine you're probably shaking, have emotions and stuff, unless you're something psychotically wrong with you.
Pretty fucking.
Folks, that's it. We'll be back next week.